Member Ajwang.
Present.
Member Cho is absent. Member Fain.
Present.
Member Lindsay. Present. Member Rios.
Present.
Member Oji.
Present.
Member Trenkel.
Present.
Okay, land acknowledgement. If said, should we do it? Thank you so much for volunteering on the spur of the moment.
Okay. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is selection of chair and vice chair. So do you want to explain the process, John?
Yeah, sure. Before we do that, just real quick to let you know that the mics, if you press once and the light will go on, that means it's on. If you press again, it will go off. So I think maybe your mic was off, Jim?
The light's on. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Oh, it wasn't on. It was a reflection. Okay.
Yes. So we want to make sure that when you're talking, make sure the mic is on. You can keep it on, but just if you keep it on, make sure you don't have paper rustling next to it that makes the feedback. So other than that, we'll do the chair and vice chair. So do you want to? Well, I'll do it. So usually for all advisory bodies, we select a chair and a vice chair. The chair's role is to work with the staff to work out the upcoming agenda and to run the meeting or be the facilitator of the meeting. You guys probably all read the advisory body handbook. It explains a little more detail in there. And the vice chair is in the situation where a chair is unable to attend the meeting, then the vice chair would be in the place of the chair. So usually what we do is you can nominate someone, or you can nominate yourself, and then we take a vote, and then the chair will take over, and then we'll do the nomination and voting again for vice chair. So I don't know if I think this is because this is a new commission and most everybody here is new. I don't know if you want to go through and go through and introduce yourself and express whether you have an interest to be the chair or the vice chair, and if there's a reason why. So perhaps we're going to do it alphabetical until so if we could start at that end.
Hi, I'm Akinya Juang. I have lived in Albany for maybe seven or 8 years now. I have 2 young kids as well. One of them is a prospective kindergartner. And is there anything else you'd like me to add in terms of introductions?
Just that if you have an interest to be the chair or vice chair, or and if there's a reason.
I would love to be the chair. I have quite a bit of interest in terms of what projects are being looked at, especially as it relates to educational initiatives for children within the Albany school system, as well as just what's being done as it relates to educating the people who live here to make the city a safer place for Black and brown individuals.
Commissioner Faye?
Hello, my name is Ife. I'm a junior at Albany High School, and I do not want to be the chair.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Myself?
Like activities?
Like why you want to be involved in Rice Commission?
I feel like I have many leadership roles, and I'm not a part of our school's government, so I would like to do something outside the community, and I saw this opportunity in my school, and I thought I would be a good fit for it.
My name is Jim Lindsay. I've been living here since Moses, and served on lots and lots of commissions. I would really rather not be the chair or vice chair. I think it's time to have other people take those roles, but would do it if we were in a pinch. Anti-racist work is just one of my passions. For those who don't know me, my other major volunteer work is for ranked choice voting, which we just implemented in Albany this last election. And I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 20-ish years at El Cerrito High School.
Good evening. My name is Flor. I would like to not be the chair. I'd like to give someone else the opportunity to experience what it is to work in community. I attend UC Berkeley. I am a solo mom of two, and formerly the vice chair of the Social Justice Commission. Thank you.
My name is Jeanette Oji, and I have lived in Albany since the end of 2019. So I got to spend the pandemic in my house. And my daughter threatened to move back to San Francisco several times. She's a elementary student at Ocean View, and what else? I do not want to be the chair. However, not many of us have volunteered, so I would volunteer to be the vice chair if we don't get any other people, but yeah.
I'm Charlotte Trankel. I'm a freshman at Albany High School. I got interested to do this because I'm a founding board member for the organization AAPI Youth Rising. We advocate for Asian American rights, so it kind of aligned with this, so I was interested. Oh, and I can volunteer myself for vice chair. Yeah.
So it sounds like we have a volunteer for chair, one, right? Two chairs? Okay, so we have volunteer for 2 chairs and 2 vice chair. So let's do the chair first.
You want a nomination and
We
vote
don't-
one by one, or do you want?
We vote one by one.
Right.
So, but we don't need a nomination. I mean, basically, they have interest in it already, so we'll just vote one by one.
Okay, so for Member Ajwang as chair, taking votes now. So Member Ajwang?
I vote for myself.
Member Fain?
I don't know anyone's name, but you're right there. What was your name again? Yeah.
OG.
OG? I vote for her for.
No, right now we're voting for Member Ajwan to be the chair. So
Sorry, we say yes.
you either say yes or you say no.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Okay, regarding Member Ajwang, as chair, I vote yes.
Member Rios? Member Oji?
Yes.
Member Tranquil?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like it goes to Ajwang. Congratulations.
And for this meeting, if we like, we can swap chairs, or we can just wait till the next meeting to usually the chair sits in the center.
Yeah, we would, are you cool with that?
For this meeting.
Okay.
And then she'll just switch the next meeting.
Oh, but you're going to take over now, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, so for vice chair, we'll start with OG. We'll take votes now. Chair Ajwang.
I'm sorry, who is nominated for?
We had OG volunteered and Trenkle volunteered.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start that way.
Do we have to vote?
Yes, you have to vote.
So we'll take the vote for Trenkle as vice chair. Member Fain.
No, you got to start. Oh, okay, that's right. No, member Fang.
No, go ahead. Member Fain.
Yes.
Member Lindsay.
Yes?
Member Rios.
Yes.
Member OG.
Yes.
Member Trenkle.
Yes.
And Chair Ajwang.
Yes.
All right.
And just as a reminder, this meeting is recorded, so make sure your mic is on when you speak, because otherwise, in the Zoom world or on the YouTube, people won't be able to hear you.
So what happens now is that we move to the next item on the agenda and you call for public comment.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. Are there any persons in the, should I read this paragraph or just go for?
Sure.
Okay.
Up to you.
For persons desiring to address the Commission on Social and Economic Justice item that is not on the agenda, please note that each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the advisories board ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or to a future agenda.
And it looks like we don't have any public comment.
Is there public comment in the room? No? Okay. Can move on to the next item.
Moving on to announcements. So staff and commission member announcements. Are there any announcements?
No announcements.
Other than this is, congratulations to all of you being appointed, and this is the first Racial Inclusivity and Social Equity Commission, otherwise known as RISE Commission.
Moving on to presentations. Are there any presentations?
Yes. You get to listen to, hopefully not too many minutes of me talking. Sorry, let me share the screen. Okay, usually it is our city attorney that does this Brown Act and Brown Act training. And this is because this is a new commission. I know you in your email that let you know that you got appointed. There is a link to the training that we had earlier in the year. And hopefully all of you had a chance to review that. This is just a sort of like a quick recap over it because this is a brand new commission. And I just wanted to remind people a few of the crucial points. And like I said, usually our city attorney is the one that does this. Unfortunately, she's at a different city, being their city attorney at a city council meeting. So she sent me her slide for me to do a brief presentation on it. Okay, so the Brown Act is the law in California that governs all public meetings to ensure that the action taken by the body be taken openly and that the discussion and deliberation be conducted openly as well. So the key word here is open and transparent. The body is defined to include legislative body, like the city council or the Board of Education, but in our capacity, it's city council. And any permanent, temporary decision-making or advisory which are created by formal action of the legislative body, like commissions, committees, and boards. So this commission is created by a formal action of the city council. Therefore, our body, Brown Act does apply to this commission. There is times when Brown Act doesn't apply to what we call the committee that is created within the body, and they're usually within the advisory body. Sometimes there'll be individual groups that's broken, like a subgroup, to take a deep dive into a specific topic, and we call those, there are two types of committees, either the ad hoc committee, or sometimes we refer to them as subcommittees, or which is not subject to the Brown Act, versus a standing committee, which is subject to the Brown Act. Both are composed of less than a quorum member of the commission. Ad hoc can only be, well, ad hoc is less than a quorum and cannot add any member of the public other than those who are designated to be part of the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee. And the standing committee are those that are created on a more general topic that is going to take more time and to discuss and to figure out. That is sort of like a permanent subcommittee or permanent group, and they are subject to the Brown Act, even though they're still made up of less than a quorum of the members. The definition of a meeting is gathering of the majority, because this group is a 7-member body, so the quorum is 4 members. That means for every meeting, we need to have a minimum of 4 members present to have the meeting held. So if there's, for any reason that you can't you can't attend the meeting, please let the staff liaison, John, know, or let me know that you won't be able to attend the meeting as soon as possible, because like I mentioned earlier, a quorum is needed to have the meeting, and we don't want to have to cancel the meeting last minute. Typically, Brown Act violation can happen in a serial meeting. That's through, when I say serial meeting, it's not just a meeting like this setting. It can happen via text, email, and social media, and we call those inadvertent Brown Act violation. And it can even happen when, when you guys are all sitting in different houses, different cities, different states. But if there's communications via text, email, or on the phone, and you guys are talking about the same topic, then that could be a Brown Act violation. And a couple ways that it comes up. One is a chain. Oh, sorry, I edited this, but it didn't come up. A chain reaction, which is like member A talks to member B. If member Trenkel talks to member OG talks to member Rios, and member Rios talk to member Lindsay. Even though you're only talking to one person, but guess what? There's 4 of you now talking about the same topic. So that's a violation of the Brown Act. The other situation is in a hub and spoke situation, which is sort of like, it's probably better explained in the graph, where I'm going to go that way now. If Member Ajwan talked to Member Fang, Member Fang talks to Member Lindsay, and then Member Fang also talked to Member Rios. Well, there's 4 of you on the same topic again. Just remember, shouldn't be more than 3 for a topic. And a suggestion that our city attorney had is, on a particular topic, create your topic buddy, and you only talk to that buddy about the subject, and don't talk to anyone else. So if the 2 of you are buddies, then Member OG got to remember, don't talk about the same topic to another person, another member. Yes.
With the council, they can only be in groups of 2 because they have 5 people.
Correct.
Because we have 7 people, you could have a group of 3, but you got to be really careful. So if the 2 of us were talking about something, we got to make sure that if I talk to her and you talk to her, we just violated the Brown Act. So we got to know who else we're talking to and keep it to 3. Does that
Yes.
make sense, you guys? It can be 3 people, but you both got to know. Everybody's got to know who those 3 people are so you don't screw it up, right? If that makes sense.
So there are very prescribed time when Brown Act does not apply, and I'm going to run through these real quick because these are all in the presentation slide and also the training video that when John sent out the video, the email to let you guys know. So make sure if you haven't had a chance to watch it or read it yet, please read that and watch it as soon as possible. The Brown Act does not apply when there's contact with the public. The one caveat to this is you can talk to the public about things, but make sure if the public start to tell you, oh, member so-and-so is telling me how they feel about this. And member so-and I talked to member Ajwan, I talked to member Fang, and their opinion about this is this and this and this. Do a friendly suggestion, back to the public, say, I can talk to you about this, but please don't share what other members thought on this with me. All the thoughts and your opinion should be shared here in the public setting when it's open to the public, in the public meeting. When you go to conferences that are open to the public on issues of general interest to the public, you can, more than 4 of you can all attend, and you can attend just like any other general public can. Just remember, don't sit privately and start discussing city business. Like say, oh, let's all, this group, we are all on the RISE Commission, and we're at this, League of California City conference, but we're all on RISE Commission. So let's all sit together. Oh, remember what happened last night at this meeting? Or, this coming up agenda has this item, let's talk about it. That's a no-no. Of course, you can attend an open and notice meeting of another government agency, like the Board of Education or another city. Or every 2 years, usually, we haven't done it in the last couple years because of pandemic, but we usually have like an appreciation gathering, and this is purely social or ceremonial gatherings. And same thing, you don't want to sit privately and start talking about city business. And then also, we need to make sure we stick to the agenda. We shouldn't talk about things that are not listed on the agenda. We have a section on the agenda, I think Chair Ajwan just read the paragraph, that there is a section called public comment for items that are not listed on the agenda. That's for a member of the public. They can raise issue or make a comment on something that's not on the agenda. And as a commission, you can, that's the next slide, but you can provide a simple response or ask, refer to staff or have staff do a quick response, but no no intense discussion. Like, it shouldn't be a back and forth. It shouldn't be a conversation. It shouldn't be any discussion about it. This is for an item that's not on the agenda. And to stick with the agenda also helps the meeting to run more efficiently. This year, you can see that we have at least, I think we have 3 student members here, and they, which is great. But they, I mean, as well as you guys, they have a busy life too. You know, they probably have sports that they're in. They probably have homework and exams that they have to study for. So we're going to try to run these meetings very efficiently and hopefully end them within 2 hours so they can go home and finish their homework, finish their studying, and all that stuff. And, you know, you want to, even if you don't have homework, you want to go home and spend quality time with your family. So this slide, it really doesn't happen that often, especially at this level. It's usually for the council member. It's adding item that's not on the agenda, except for very specific situations. So we're not going to talk about that. And then this slide is what I was talking about. If a member of the public makes a comment, you can do a brief response to statement or question from the public, questions to staff for clarification of matter based on public comment, brief announcement or report on the members or staff's own activities, provide reference or information to staff, or ask staff to report back at a future meeting on any matters. So the brief announcement or report on members' staff own activity, it's, right now you guys probably don't have any, but earlier in the agenda we had announcement, section of announcement. If you attended a racial inclusivity or social equity related event, and you want to let the other commissioner know, that's where you announce it. You just do a quick announcement, say, I've attended this, I learned this. Or you can announce, say, I know that there's an upcoming event that's related to this topic on this day and this time. If other commissioner have time, please attend. Something that's related to this commission. So until recent year, Brown Act doesn't really have anything on social media, and now they have this, what we call AB 992. You can post, I think many of you probably have social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, what's the other one? Anyways.
Instagram and TikTok.
Instagram, yes. You guys probably have social media accounts. You have to remember, you can answer questions, you can provide information to the public or ask for information from the public, provide factual information there, but try not to share your opinion on social media because that may, I mean, some of them it might be okay, but it gets into a fine line of what is okay and what is not. You could probably also create, I don't know if you want to create a separate one that's just for city business so that it's completely separate from your personal social media account. The reason for that is with your with anything that you post on the social media, if it's city business related, you have to have an account that's open and accessible to public. You cannot block anyone or deny access from anyone to post. I don't know if you guys do it on your own social media, but there are accounts where you're like, I don't like this person's post. I want to remove it, or I want to block this person. You can't do that on something that's city business related. So perhaps it's a good idea to keep it separate. And you cannot discuss amongst yourselves city business on social media. That's the reason why I said try not to put your opinion on there, because then somebody's probably going to respond to that, and that becomes a discussion. And no direct responses to other commissioner. That includes emojis. The like, the don't like, those are all considered communications. Sorry, this is the Brown Act is a little dry, but it's all very important. So before the pandemic, there are ways to join this meeting by teleconferencing. And the way to do that is we have to know, staff has to know before the agenda is posted, which is the agenda has to be posted a minimum of 72 hours in advance, and we usually post a Friday before the meeting. So like this meeting, we posted on last Friday. And then on that agenda, if you're participating from a remote location, you would have to identify the location on the agenda, the address, and the location has to be available and open to the public. And you also have to post the agenda at that location minimum of 72 hours before the meeting. And then everybody here has to do roll call votes, which we already do anyways. And I think we had someone that was doing this from someone wanted to do because they're sick, so they wanted to join the meeting from their home. But then what happens is you have to open your door, and anyone from the public can just walk right into the door to your house. So a lot of people don't like that. So now, since during the pandemic, we had the Zoom option, and two of our members who are prior Social Economic Justice Commission commission members have attended the meeting via Zoom. But now that the state has lifted the state of emergency, we can no longer do that. So all the meeting has to be held in person here. There are 2 exceptions per the new law that was passed, AB 2449. There's the just cause provision, and the other one is emergency circumstances. If for whatever reason you cannot attend and you want to seek out this option, please contact us as soon as possible. And there's a limited number of times that you can attend because using these reasons. For example, just cause, actually because of the number of meetings that we have per year, you can use these reasons no more than 2 meetings per calendar year. And the just causes for childcare or caregiving needs, contagious illness, physical or mental disability, or travel while on official city business or another state or to another state or local agency. And you must notify the staff at the earliest opportunity possible, and give the reason why. And the other situation is for emergency circumstances. The official, or you guys must the member must request to participate remotely as soon as you know. I mean, of course, emergency we understand, but even if right before the meeting start, we need to know, and the rest of the members would have to take action to allow that member to attend remotely. And then you also have to disclose if there's any individual that's 18 years or older in the room with you at whatever location that you're participating from. All votes must be by roll call votes, which we do already. If there's a disruption on the city's online meeting, the commission cannot take any further action until the online meeting is restored. So in other words, right now, if all the members are here and we're having this meeting, but we have the Zoom option for public to attend. But if the technology fails, we can continue on with the meeting because the meeting is noticed as in-person meeting. It is held here. And the member of the public has the option to attend via Zoom or come here in person. But if it's a meeting where one of the member is using one of the reason for 2449 to attend remotely, and if technology fails, then we cannot continue on with the meeting, even if we have more than a quorum here. So that's just something to know. And we can't have more, 4 members attend remotely while 3 members here. And there needs to be a majority here in the room in person. And the last slide here, I just wanted to, when you guys apply, you probably looked over the commission purpose, but I just want to reiterate the Racial Inclusivity and Social Equity, or otherwise known as RICE Commission, is tasked with advise the City Council on the citywide priority of equity, diversity, accountability, and inclusivity to address the broad spectrum of intersectional issues across race and social equity within the City of Albany, and is also tasked with to seek to develop positive relations through the Commission's regular monthly meetings as a space to facilitate greater respect and understanding between people, offering opportunities for culture exchange and education, and promote tolerance and mutual respect between all members of the community. So just keep that in mind when we're having discussions here. And the question says Mala, but you can always send me a question. And for things that I'm not unable to answer, I will definitely refer to our city attorney for her to give a confirmed answer. So thank you. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's one thing that trips up folk when they are just new to a commission that you might have missed or wasn't clear, but somebody always gets bit by this. And that is that somebody will have an idea for something, whatever the idea is, and it's not on the agenda. We can't take it up in that meeting. We just can't. And the reason for that is that the public didn't know we were going to discuss it. It wasn't on the agenda. So they didn't know we were going to discuss it. They didn't have a chance to show up to talk about it. So what we have to do if we have an idea is I guess it's number 7 tonight. It says future agenda items. On future agenda items, you can ask that something go there, and then it'll be on the agenda and we can talk about it. And people sometimes will use announcements to just indicate that they've been thinking about something and they'll come back to us, or there's, something like that. They might do it in an announcement form. But it sometimes frustrates people, and it's just kind of a heads up. That's the law when you have a new idea. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Yeah, Jim, Member Lindsay and Member Rios have been on our prior commission that's called why am I blanking on it? SEJC, Social and Economic Justice Commission. Sorry, I blank on it. They were on that commission. So they're probably a little more experienced with the Brown Act. But like I said, anytime, any questions, feel free to reach out. Any other questions based on the presentation? I know, Mala, our city attorney, could probably do a much better job than I can, but I think, going back and watch the video that has the more of her detailed presentation. This is just kind of like a quick recap, a quick reminder for everyone. And it doesn't look like we have anyone in the public in attendance, so we can skip public comment, and unless a member of the public here has questions or comments.
So moving on to agenda item 6, correct? Right? Okay. Discussion and possible action of matters related to the following items, which is 6-1, Commission Work Plan.
Unfortunately, you have to listen to me talk a little more, except this one is basically your discussion, but I'm going to start us off, being that this is a new commission and a new, the first meeting. So usually we have what we call a work plan. Sorry, hold on a second. Work plan is items that you want to work on while you're in this commission. And these, because this is appointed by, this body is created by the council, we want to make sure that that this commission is working on items that the council wants us to work on. And so this is our typical work plan template, and it starts with the purpose of Rice Commission, which I already read to you in the previous slide. And here is a start for the next year and a half, at least, until the end of the term, December 2024, on the work plan item. So the first one is, I don't know if you can see it. First one is participate in forthcoming citywide racial equity survey process and provide recommendations to the City Council regarding insight identified in the final report for racial equity survey. Actually, I'm going to throw it to John to read the other 3. So you're not hearing me talk for the rest of the meeting.
Sure. So the next one is provide recommendation in coordination with other advisory bodies towards implementation of the city's housing element, with particular focus on programs to help facilitate increased housing availability for all members of the community. Next item is conduct facilitated forums on RISE topic areas as part of regular commission meetings, engaging a diverse group of topic areas, including but not limited to engagement with school-related affinity groups, thought leaders, and local organizations. And the final one is provide an annual recommendation for the council on programs or services to be provided with sugar-sweetened beverage tax revenue.
I'm so sorry, I cannot read your last name from here. Okay, go ahead, Lindsay. Member Lindsay.
So was this part of the ordinance that the council produced, or is this a recommendation from staff, or where did these 4 items come from?
This is a startup from staff,
Okay.
or startup recommended from staff.
Okay. So just to clarify things, each commission usually says, here's the things we want to work on, and they ask council, is that okay? And sometimes council says yes, and sometimes they say no, right? because they don't want to waste our time if they're not interested in something, right? You know, they're just not interested in something, then they might say no, or they might think maybe you bit off more than you can chew. Can you guys knock it down to like less items or something, you know, something like that. So those are staff suggestions. They're not mandatory. We get to make our own suggestions and ask the council to work on them. We could incorporate them, we could use them or not use them or whatever, just to be clear, right? Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. I have also, I guess, a question for you. Is in terms of that back and forth with the council, if there are items that they say no to, is it possible to, how do we work that out, especially if it's something that maybe the board would feel particularly akin to carrying out? Like, does that, how is that generally worked out with the council?
Well, we work at the pleasure of the council. And if the council says no, all you can do possibly is ask them to reconsider. And you can lobby them in between, that's legal. You know, it's legal to call your council member and say, you know, but we work at their pleasure. And by city rule, not by the Brown Act, but by city rule, all the commissions in the city work that way. I don't think it's likely to come up as long as we don't pick too many items. If the items picked are pretty reasonable and there's not too many of them, then it's unlikely to happen, right? You know, but if it does, and the council, a majority of the council is like, no, we don't want you to work on that, you can take it to an outside organization, but as a commission, council's our boss, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does that conclude the 6-1?
No, you guys can discuss if there are additional items that you like to work on.
Got it.
Can
Okay.
you put those 4 back up that staff was thinking about?
Yeah, we're having a little bit of technical
Okay.
issues.
There's also the handouts in front of each of you is what was on the board a moment ago.
There's a handout?
Yeah.
Just a single sheet.
Oh, everybody noticed it but me, thank you. Okay, got it. So now would be a time in which people could say, I would like us to work on X. I have this idea. I would like us to work on X. Right? People can throw out their ideas of things that they want on our work plan.
Is it also fair game to kind of bring up questions about the work plan items that were listed on the?
Now, this is staff trying to help us out
Okay.
by suggesting 4 things that we might want to work on.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but Annette just said the recording is ended. Okay.
Yes. It's still being recorded.
So people can discuss this, like, if you like these items, you could say that. You just raise your hand, you get called on. Please don't be shy, talk up. And then anything else that you would like. You could say, I like this one, I don't like this one. I think we should do this. You know, now's the time to.
I have a question. What exactly would it mean to work on providing recommendations for the city's housing element? The second bullet point?
So the city just recently adopted what they call the housing element. The housing element is started from the Community Development Department. And it's talking about housing quota. State of California wants all the city to meet certain housing quotas. Mm-hmm. And housing, I don't know the detail of housing element, but the housing element has information about how the city can plan to meet these requirements or quotas, or and how many affordable housings that needs to be provided. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested, well, If we are going to go forward with that, then I would suggest, I mean, we can invite the Community Development Director, Jeff Bond, to come here and do a presentation on the housing element, and you can read up on the housing element. It is a document probably this thick.
Does it have to do with what they're building over there off Pierce?
Not completely. That is one housing project that can help meet the state's housing quota.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and we definitely have that planned to have.
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that. To have the Community Development Department director to come and do a presentation on housing element.
Can we get that calendared?
Yes, but I would need to check with them and then. But yeah, we have a few presentations in mind that will definitely be coming this way.
Just to clarify, the chair and the and staff, which is really Jonathan, but Anne's helping out tonight, usually make the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and on the agenda is a presentation. But staff needs a fair amount of lead time to arrange the presentations. So the two of you would talk about what presentations you want and what are viable and what aren't and like that. And we can ask, in this case, we can do it now, but other times we could do an announcement or under future agenda items, say it would be great to have a presentation from Albany Cares or, you know, whoever, right? The Black Parent Engagement Group or, you know, whoever. And then the chair hears that and staff hear, you know, and our staff member hears it. And then they're like, okay, you know, you can only do one, you know, usually you can only do one per meeting and we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah, we usually try to do one per meeting,
Yeah.
unless it's something that's really time sensitive.
Are there any members who would want to share any work plan items or anything related to this commission that you'd want to see implemented?
I'm really curious. You said you had a couple of ideas, and I'm curious what your ideas were.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen different community colleges and schools do is what has been called read-alongs, especially as it relates to anti-racist works. I attended I didn't attend a read-along, but I attended sort of like the culminating event of a read-along at Marin Community College. And they focused on the 1619 project by Nicole Hannah-Jones. I mean, they read the book, but it originally was a podcast, a New York Times podcast. And it really engaged the students in the work over the course of a year. And I thought that was a really good idea as it relates to education, because I think that's one of the bigger barriers we have when it, you know, in terms of like carrying out anti-racist work.
So what happens at a read-along?
Usually you might engage like the librarians, and they would then help facilitate like creating a kind of like a curriculum, or I mean, it's not really a curriculum because the book is already in front of you, but just like creating space for to have like time to read a chapter and then discuss a chapter. And so you kind of do it in community so that everybody can really share their thoughts and perspective, and you can have the difficult conversations in community. And then, you know, with the specific one that I'm referencing, you know, to kind of wrap up the whole thing, they had Angela Davis and Robin Spencer come and speak at the College of Marin, and that kind of like, you know, was the end to that project. So I thought that was a really good initiative.
That is a great idea. I read the book and watched the series. It's very good.
So, I mean, we can take public comment, I guess, now that we rejoin, the Zoom has rejoined. We have a couple public comment that maybe we want to go ahead and take.
Hi, my name is Margie Marks. I want to thank you all for stepping up to be on this commission. I see that you're working on your work plan tonight, and I have some suggestions for you. First, an event happened at the high school in 2016 involving Instagram and racism. Although it happened in 2016, the issue of what happened and the city's response to it still gets brought up today, particularly by African American parents. About 3 months ago, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has said that the Instagram account incident was hate speech. Albany, did we really need a court to tell us that comparing Black people to apes and referring to lynchings is hate speech? Months ago, an African American child was chased through the streets of Albany, afraid for her life. According to the parents, the city considers that case now closed. The parents of that child have contacted an attorney. Do we in Albany need a court to tell us about the racist implications of chasing and threatening an African American child through our streets? A book has just been published about the Instagram account. It's called Accountable, the true story of a racist social media account and the teenagers it affected. I love the chair's suggestion about doing a reading. I would suggest that the commission invite the author and have a public listening session with the author that the public could participate in. That incident is not dead. On another topic very close to my heart is housing. Right now, tonight, 20% of Albany citizens are at risk of displacement because their rent is so high. That information is in the housing element. And those families are mostly our families of color. We need to provide some relief for those families. I also want to talk about a community land trust. I believe this is one of those items that if you build it, people will come. A land trust could be used for a lot of things in Albany. And I can't see how much time I have left. I'm sorry, that's hard for me to decide how much I can talk when I don't see the time.
It's about 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, a land trust could be used for a lot of things. It could be used to purchase buildings that could be sold back to the tenants at a price they can afford. It could be used for to stave off evictions. It could be used to help for move-in and move-out costs for people that have to move. It would be money that would be spent for community land in the city of Albany. So I have some other things too, but please look at the housing. You'll get a presentation about the housing element, and I will participate in that by public comment because I have a lot to say about it. But like I said, 20% of Albany citizens are at risk of displacement tonight as we talk, and they're mostly families of color. So I can't stress enough how important housing is, but please take on the racial issue too. Thank you for your time. And thank you for serving.
I like Margie Marks, would like to welcome everyone. And thank you very much for being there. It's wonderful to see the diverse faces. It's the diversity in the group. I really appreciate being able to hear from people with different, a range of life experiences. For the work plan, I wanted to, I love the idea of a book discussion, and I think that Margie's suggestion about having the accountable, that book is a great idea. It's a topic that hasn't really been discussed fully, and I know there are a lot of issues particularly at the high school, that haven't been directly addressed. And I think would be a chance for the community to hear more about that and to have a conversation. I also love the idea of engaging with school-related affinity groups, and I'm particularly impressed by the group called Speak, and I think it would be great if you had them come in and do a presentation. I recently had invited them to present at a local Unitarian church, and they're really great. The work that they're doing is amazing, and they're really inspiring. And for the annual recommendation to the council on programs or services with the sugar and sweetened beverage tax revenue, every year when that comes up, I suggest that that the city provide a pilot program of direct cash transfers, or sometimes known as universal basic income, where you give people money, cash, no strings attached, no decision about how they should spend the money, and give them the autonomy to be able to decide for themselves. And I think it would be a really welcome program in Albany, and I would like to see that supported or encouraged, and have a really in-depth conversation about it, rather than me every year sending people links and then nothing ever comes of it. And there was the housing element. I agree with Margie. The looking at who's at risk of losing their housing, people who's the percentage of renters in the city, and the way that people are disproportionately affected. All of that I think is really important. And finally, I noticed that there are cities where they've experimented with having police-free, it's people coming. An incident happens and the police come and watch, but they don't actually engage, and they have a group of local community members who engage it's not anything to do with weapons, for example, low risk, I guess, situations. There was just an article in the New York Times about Brooklyn, New York, doing that for 5 days. And I would love to see a discussion about something like that in Albany. Thanks again for being on this group, and I'm really excited about the work that you're going to be doing.
There's no more public comment.
Would it, could we then turn back to the work plan items that other folks might want to suggest, other members might want to suggest? Yep. Member Lindsay?
Yeah, because they're recording it, they like you to, say the person's name. So I was going to suggest that one of our work plan items be to help the city implement the racial equity impact plan that the council has already accepted. It happened after the murder of Mr. Floyd, and it was a 2-3 year process, and the plan has been adopted. And think of the 9 items that are next steps, which are, real quick, adopt an equity statement, complete a minimum of 2 additional listening sessions, complete a racial equity community survey, revise city mission vision statements to reflect racial equity, support launch of an Office of Racial Equity in Albany, provide yearly updates to community on progress towards equity goals, improve outreach and communication, partner with the Albany Unified School Districts to align racial equity goals, and review police department policies and procedures. Of those, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, 2 of them are in process and none are completed. The 2 that are in process is the Racial Equity Community Survey and the review of police department policies and procedures. So that's kind of annoying, but it's often happens, that sort of thing. And so I think for us to help the city get those implemented would be a good work plan item.
Do you mind giving just some context here in terms of, I mean, outside of like the action items, but like just context for what the racial equity impact plan was, the genesis of it, and like how then it became adopted?
Well, Well, I mean, white people woke up a little bit, and there was a sort of an accounting, a reckoning in Albany that people were really thinking about it, and there was a lot of demands. And the council responded by hiring, I think, a good group. I forget, Nicole Anderson and Associates. And it was completed and accepted in June 2021. And there were listening sessions in the city. There was a lot of analysis done. They came to the SEJC and other commissions and stuff like that. And the Racial Equity Impact Plan used to be linked under the Social Economic Justice Commission, but staff, I couldn't find it linked under RISE. I found it by doing a search on the city website. So if you could possibly get that linked again under RISE, that would be really, really great, whether or not it's on our work plan. I don't know. I don't know if that's the information you were looking for, Chair, or
Mainly trying to understand what was decided on, and how the plan is trying to get towards racial equity.
I mean, it's not, 400 pages or whatever, 200 pages like the housing element is, which they had to get the state to approve, but it's still not short. There were consultants that were trying to advise the city of Albany on what to do to improve racial equity in Albany. So the city hired these consultants, and they did lots of listening plans and consultations and all that stuff, right, to come up with, there's like a framework page and a next steps page and possible survey questions and stuff, and just like things that we can and should do in Albany to improve racial equity. And the council accepted that plan, but has not really implemented much of it. Does that answer the question?
It does, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry, having a hard time.
I also found it online, so
Okay, great.
Let me interject, and just to let you know, you don't have to complete this work plan today.
Yeah.
Definitely, you can spend time to do some reading. And I have the website pulled up. You can find the equity impact plan under, if you go to the City of Albany website, under Our City, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Sorry, hold on a second. Is that better to see? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then down here, the equity impact plan.
Great, okay.
Okay, and earlier we were talking about housing element. If you go under department, planning and zoning, housing element. All the backstories here. So perhaps even, you can definitely talk about suggestions that we want to, the commission want to think about, and then perhaps before the next meeting, read up on some of these things, and next meeting, then you'll have more of a better understanding of what else is involved or what these documents are. And probably provide a more insightful a comment or things that you want to add to the work plan, things that you want to work on.
Yes, sorry, I can't see your name. Okay, Member Rios.
Thank you. I'd like to propose that I continue my work on building an equity statement for the city of Albany. And that would also come together with an equity office here at the city of Albany as well.
Thank you. I have a question for previous members. Has there ever been any initiatives that are geared towards curriculum in schools, such as like in the way that we see there's a test program for an AP African American Studies class?
I think the best answer for that would be to address those questions to the Board of Education. Would possibly be outside of our purview to make recommendations to the city on their behalf, but we can definitely ask the question to both City Council and the Board of Education.
Yeah, I mean, Member Lindsay, sorry.
So the way that things work is that the City Council the city literally has no control over the schools at all. None. 100% it's done by the school board. So, they don't always get along in a lot of cities, you know. I think in Albany they mostly get along most years because the city has a whole bunch of things it has to manage, which is basically everything outside of schools. And the schools gets a whole chunk of money to do the schools. There is some communication. There's a regular subcommittee of council members and school board members that get together regularly. The council requests the school board to appoint people to the city commissions, like, you know, or to suggest people. And sometimes the city finds backdoor ways to help out the schools, like with the crossing guard program. The city's actually funding that. And so, but mostly the school board runs the schools, you know, and the city runs everything else. And we're a city commission. So we could certainly do something in which maybe, you know, we can try, but as Elizabeth said, for school stuff, it's kind of the school board that runs the show.
Thank you for clarification.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Is it the same topic? No, it's probably not. My question is, when we first read everything, I didn't know we were like we basically took over tribal land or something. Is that what it is? Or do we do anything for them? Since when you read the little statement thing at the beginning.
The land acknowledgement?
Yes. Do we actually do anything for them?
We have land recognition of them. There's signs that show like their name on it and that do provide recognition. And by reading their acknowledgement, it shows that we do care, even though we haven't taken physical action about it. It shows that we have taken the time to acknowledge them, even though it's something like physical, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Is there anyone here from those tribes? Like, should we actually do something?
We could ask for a presentation for sure, or we could take it as a work item, right, which would allow us to do stuff. What happened was that the previous SEJC initiated a discussion with the Lijon, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but with the Lijon group. And what they said was, the number one thing is you need to treat us with respect and we need to be in a right relationship with you. That was their number one thing. On this one, the city council moved on it like instantly and developed a relationship with the Lijon community. I'm not sure if tribe is the right term because it's the Albany tribe. Elizabeth, maybe you can help me on this, but and so they're in some sort of communication, but I'm not sure where it's at, right? One thing that the tribe is asking is for people to voluntarily pay a tax for the land that we're occupying. And they have, I think, their own land trust or some kind of legal way to do that. And we could perhaps promote that because that is a request. Elizabeth, do you know anything more about what it's all kind of I remember.
Sure. So on October 11th of 2021, Indigenous Peoples Day was recognized by Albany. Also on May 3rd of 2021, it was made into a city holiday. And then the acknowledgement of the land statement was on November 15th of 2021. But we do have an opportunity to update the acknowledgement. I know that the people are trying to move away from the Ohlone sort of monolithic way that we refer to them, and we could initiate communication with them and see what it is they prefer. If you'd like to make that recommendation.
Oh, thank you. I like their idea of their whole land tax thing or whatever. I don't know. It's just the whole committee is racial inclusivity, and we're on their thing, so it just makes sense to do something.
So would you like to put on the agenda that you'd like to discuss?
Yes,
The
I would
tax.
like to discuss the tax,
The voluntary tax?
voluntary tax, yes.
Sure.
For our work plan, as part of the work plan? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Are there any other recommendations for work plan items? Yeah. Member
I wonder
Lindsay?
if you could ask, or maybe we could just go around and people could say what they think about the 4 that staff came up with, and thank you, staff, for doing that. And then the other, I'm not sure how to break it down, but the other 3 to 5 items, but mainly the 4 are the most accessible ones because you have them in front of you, right? And just to see what people think about them.
Yeah, definitely. Member Trinkle?
So quick question. So what exactly would be like a racial equity survey?
So this is one that we did work on pretty hard and got the city council to agree to, and then there was a lot of drama, and we don't have that much time. But it still hasn't happened, but I think that there is progress, and there is progress recently. Like, is there a timeline now, or?
Sorry, I'm trying to pull up. I believe it's on the next council agenda
To pull the trigger and move it forward?
to select a consultant.
Okay. Which we were part of. They asked us to review the consultants, and we did. The one that was the favorite looked pretty good to the SEJC commission that went through it. So it looks like that is moving forward again, which is nice. So the idea there is to do a racial equity survey that hits all of the different groups. And what that means is you have to oversample. That is, you have to like aggressively go after where there's less people in a particular community. So there's less Latinos than white people. You have to oversamplify Latinos, right? In order to get enough information from them about like experience of living in Albany and the pluses and minuses, and and the same for Black folk, and for API folk are like 40% of Albany, so they may not need to oversample there. But the idea is to find out, what it's really like, what reality is. I was part of the subcommittee. Frankly, we think that when people in Albany see the results of the survey, that it'll be a call to accountability. A lot of people are sort of in denial about Albany and are really horribly shocked when something happens. but people of color aren't so shocked. So that reality coming out in the survey, and a scientific survey, that's done correctly and like that, which is part of the deal here. And then we can say, okay, here's the problem. We can all agree that this is the problem, and what are we going to do to move the needle? And then they do the survey again a couple of years later, 3 years later, whatever the time is, and we see, are we moving the actual needle? Are we actually changing things for the better? So it's a way to hold ourselves accountable and get a realistic view of what's going on, and then to track progress. That's the idea of it. And the council is moving on it, really slow, but moving on it. So that's good. That answer the question?
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that the next council meeting is June 20th. It's a Tuesday. Normally, council meeting is on a Monday, but because of the Juneteenth holiday, so council meeting moved to Tuesday. So the racial equity survey consultant selection is on the council agenda for that meeting. And an update on, I know earlier you guys were asking about Shumi tax. What I know is it's at the council level now. I know the council is working with different group. The item is pending now because we're working with different groups of people to get that, to figure that piece out. And one other thing, other than all the recognition, thank you for Commissioner Rio for having all the dates for all the things. I don't even have that in my brain. But we also have, I don't know when you guys came, if you look on the flagpole, there's the American flag and the state of California flag on the higher pole, and on what we call the secondary pole, there's a flag that's always flying there. It's the Confederated Village of Lishan flag. That was, I believe it was raised in October of 2021. So that flag is up all the time. And below that is the pride flag for this month. So that's another thing with the recognition.
So do you want to go back to Member Trinkle in terms of your perspective on the 4 work plan items?
I think they're all things that we should keep on the work plan.
Member OG?
Yes, I think they're all things we should keep on the work plan. I'd just be interested to hear the city housing element presentation to see practically how to do that. And then you said the city council is doing the sugar sweetened beverage tax thing. I was like, oh, can we just do the thing that the Lishan group wants, which is the land tax? Can we just give them the sugar beverage tax revenue? But that was just my out loud thought. But yes, I like these things.
For the sugar sweetened beverage tax revenue, usually we want to spend on programs that will help with like the health and so we usually ask from the council asks from 3 advisory bodies. I believe they are this body, the Parks, Recreation and Open Space Commission, and I'm blanking on the third. Oh, Transportation Commission. And then we also asked the local doctor's office and dentist's office for their recommendations. And that item unfortunately, the other items, you can decide whether you want to keep or not, but that item does have to stay on the work plan because that's required by the ordinance.
Member,
And what happens is we just say how we think the money should be spent, but then it's council's final decision. They're taking what we think, but also what lots of other people think and what they themselves think and what the public is saying and what they've done in the past. A couple of years ago, we recommended that the money be spent for rent relief during the pandemic. But council wasn't interested because part of the thing is that when that tax was passed, it was promised that we would be doing things like improving nutrition, kids' nutrition and safety and stuff like that. And they didn't want to go back on that promise. And then there's been sort of a history of doing that stuff. So they chose not to take that recommendation. So usually they do want, like Ann indicated, they're looking for especially children's health and nutrition items. And our argument was, well, when you keep a family housed, that's kind of a health thing, but it didn't fly.
And just to let you all know that the what we call SSB, there's usually a study session at the council level, typically in April or May before the budget. Then there'll be a presentation from, there'll be a staff report that comes to show you guys, like the background information, all that. And typically, we will get that usually around February. So that item, even though it stays on the work plan, it's probably not something that you have to work on, or you can think about it, but it's probably not something that you need to be actively working on until beginning of next year, because we already passed the time this year.
Member Rios?
Thank you, Chair. As I said before, I'd like to continue equity statement and the racial equity mission statement for the city of Albany, as well as creating an Office of Racial Equity in Albany that specifically deals with the community's concerns, both on health and income and work that is available here in Albany. One of the things that a lot of citizens of Albany deal with is that there is inequitable access to health care. And a lot of the folks who receive Medi-Cal or Medicare, who are either very young or very old, have to drive outside of the city in order to receive those services, which is a serious issue considering that Albany cares so greatly for its children, yet it does not provide or support the inclusive practice of equitable health care. And that means that care is either deferred or avoided. And this particularly impacts graduate students of Berkeley, undergraduate students of Berkeley, transfer students of Berkeley, and it is compounded by race outside of the community of Berkeley. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you. Member Lindsay?
I don't know how many items the council will let us have. Sorry, I don't know how many items the council will let us have. Historically, we sometimes run over, and they say that, okay, you can only do 7, and it would be nice to know that up front, so that we don't ask for 10 and then they say, oh, you can only have 7. So if you guys could find out, get some guidance on that, that would be really nice. Just what's,
Well, the previous work plan was 15.
Yeah.
But I don't think even with 15, many of the advisory body didn't finish the 15. So you also want to consider your timeline, your time spent on each of this item, and the length of these item. If you go to council with, say, five or 7 items, and you're done with it, and you're done with all the items and you want to work on other items, you can always go back to the council again. So I wouldn't suggest start with, I don't know if you guys remember the 39 items that didn't quite work.
Yeah. So the first, second, and fourth, the fourth is no choice. That's mandated by council anyway. But bullet points, they make sense to me, with the housing part being a focus on equity for us. I don't quite understand how we would do number 3, conduct facilitated forums on RISE topic areas as part of regular commission meetings. And I love the idea of the read-alongs of anti-racist works, but I'm not sure quite how we would implement it. There's probably a way, but we might have to be clever. The thing is that what our job is to send recommendations to council and ask them to approve those recommendations. That's what happened with the survey, right? And that's what we were working on with the racial equity statement. We just couldn't finish it in time to get it to council under the old SEJC. And so you could have a special meeting. Staff and council's not always so thrilled about that, but we could possibly have a special meeting. There was maybe a listening session read-along thing. Or we could just allocate some time in these meetings to do, 15-minute read-along. I don't know. We have to think a little bit outside the box. On the third bullet point, conduct facilitated forums, and on the read-alongs. But I just don't get quite how we would do those, but I love the ideas. And then for the other stuff, I had said help the city implement the racial equity impact plan. And the 3 items that Member Rios said, adopt equity statement, mission statement, equity office, are part of that. But I would be happy to make those be higher priority or something, because I agree with, you can't do all 9 at once. So you got to prioritize and get some work done, and then you can move on to some other stuff. Yeah, so I'm fine with all of it, but it may be that the next meeting that we need to cut it down to 5 or something that we start with, or that we're going to prioritize and really get those done. And then we could always add in, when you complete one, you could then right at that meeting when you completed it, you could also put in a request to do another one. You have to wait till the next council meeting, but they should be able to do that before our next meeting, right? So.
Just to comment on your question on bullet 3, the forum on RISE topic area, I believe that came out from, sorry to put you on the spot, Commissioner Rios, I think that might have spurred from what you had suggested, that this be a forum or a safe place for people to express their comment.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to be notified of.
I believe that's what spurred this bullet point.
I think here's what we did last year, or what I began last year, is that the city council doesn't really have time to go into the community and understand what each affinity group is doing. So I invited affinity groups into our sessions to do their own presentations. And it is an open space for all of the affinity groups to come and share their work and their priorities. And it's great to hear their perspectives as to what affects their communities from themselves. Of course, we can't have everybody every day all at once in our sessions, so they are partitioned out throughout the year. And you just reach out to the community and invite them in. And that's what I did, and hopefully that's something that you can continue.
Thank you, Member Rios. I have a question on that. To what extent can we participate with affinity groups? Because that's also something that I am interested in, especially as it relates to the, affinity groups that might not be stood up by a formal institution. So, how can the commission actually participate in that, along the guidelines that have been outlined as it relates to like not being able to really overstep within like the school environment? How can we actually facilitate the, the work that those groups are doing, because they know best what they need for their communities. So how do we facilitate that?
I think that would be a wonderful question for Anne, but I'll give you my perspective, and that is that this is a platform, and that in itself comes with privilege, and so we can always create space for them to express themselves here without judgment and safe from retaliation.
And is there, in terms of resources, do we have any ability to help in that way, right? Whether it's recommendations to the council or being able to use whatever resources we are available to us, like outside of having them come into the space. Is that something that the commission has participated in at any point?
Again, I think that would be a great question for Anne.
Okay.
As a commissioner here, you're a sounding board. You're just listening and taking it in. That, however, does not mean that you, as a member of Albany City, living here, existing here, give up your rights to participate in any affinity group. However, when we're in session, we're here to listen and then uplift the requests of the community, if they fit within our work plan, to City Council. So I think maybe what you're trying to get at is, how do we get it to City Council? Is that maybe a question?
Yeah, I think, yes, in essence, like how do we get it to city so that like actionable items can actually be carried out?
So the usually, if there is something that the commission as a whole would like to make a recommendation to council, it would be the commission's work to put that together, to put that recommendation together. We do have a template that you can do. The template includes, you need to provide the background information. You need to provide the analysis that includes the pros and cons. And then you, of course, provide your recommendation. All this is outlined in the advisory body handbook to talk about how to bring matters to city council. Then you would send that over to the staff liaison. Staff liaison will coordinate with me, city clerk, and we coordinate, city staff will coordinate and have this item agendized on the council agenda. Then it's up to the council for their consideration based on your report.
Got it.
Or your recommendation.
Thank you. Back to you, Member Lindsay.
Well, I was going to say that with the affinity groups and whomever else, there's nothing that stops any of us from contacting and listening to leaders in the affinity group, or even attending a meeting and listening and having a give and take. And so, but mostly listening. You have to be careful if you say if you're making proposals on issues, but there's nothing that stops nothing in the Brown Act that stops any individual from talking to people in the community and taking that information back here, or even into a subcommittee. So that research was done, and if you're on a subcommittee of 3 people working on one of these items, which is usually what happens, you can go to any of the affinity groups and say, what do you think? You as an individual, and bring that back to the subcommittee. Right? So, but we really needed to reach out to the affinity groups and tell them that we wanted to hear from them, that our ears are wide open, and like, you got to reach out. But then we found that when you do reach out, that they're happy to, right, happy to make suggestions and tell us what's up. And the way we did the bullet point 3 here, in practice, we did it as presentations. And so I'm not sure that would need to be a work plan item if it was going to be presentations. If it was going to be a special, we're going to try to organize a special community forum, say at the community center, something like that, that would be a work plan item. In general, we don't have any money to spend, and we have no staff time. Staff doesn't work for us, they work for the council. And so we have to, we can ask staff to do something, but if they don't, we're not their bosses. You know, so we kind of have to do our own research, and get on our subcommittees and get some help sometimes from people in the community, you know, to put together recommendations for council. And that's for all advisory bodies, it's the same deal.
Thank you. Apologies, Ife, I can't see your last name. Fain. Member Fain?
I agree with a lot of these, like all of them really, but I'm kind of curious how we'd implement the engagement with school-related affinity groups. So if they were to come here and do presentations, it's most likely going to be about their education. And if we're not able to make any decisions about education, what would be the point of hearing what they have to say about their education? That makes
Member Lindsay?
So we don't really have an NAACP in Albany. And we don't have MALDEF, we don't have Southwest Voters Education Project or anything like that in Albany. The only place we have organized people of color are in the parent engagement groups. That's what we got. And so we can ask them to speak about other issues in Albany outside of the school that we can work on. Yes, they are absolutely 100% focused on their kids and the way, you know, our schools are serving Black and brown kids and AAPI issues and stuff like that. But still, they are, the vast majority of them live in Albany, not all in the parent engagement group. There might be somebody not living in Albany who's in the parent engagement group. But still, we can still pick their brains, you know, about stuff that we can do. But you're right, we are limited on when it comes to like hiring teachers of color. But one thing I thought about was that we could ask somebody from the school board or somebody to come about that issue, because in some schools it's not pretty. So, you know, and that would be just be, you know, that would be raising awareness, and that would be uplifting voices and pointing out issues. We can't really recommend anything to the school board, and we can't recommend city council to do much on that, but we could still, you know, bring up voices and sort of raise awareness, that sort of thing. I don't know if that helps.
Just to add to it, and not to contradict what you've said, because it is true that we the Board of Education is not, they make their own decisions. They're not the same agency as City of Albany. But if there is something strongly that we feel, we can certainly, if there's a subcommittee or ad hoc committee that's formed to do research and stuff like that, and come back and present to the subcommittee, present to the commission as a whole, and the commission feel strongly enough that they want to make this recommendation to the Board of Education, they can designate someone and ask to present. I don't know how they agendize their stuff, but ask to present at the Board of Education meeting. But same thing, it's up to them whether they take our recommendation or not.
Is it typical that there is a liaison with the Board of Education? I had a conversation with a council member, and I just want to clarify that. Do we have somebody who attends those meetings?
No.
Okay, got it. Do you, member? My goodness, I'm so sorry. Member Faye. Do you have any more? Okay, great.
I'm also concerned about the Office of Racial Equity idea. How would we implement it here, and what would be its objectives if we were to implement it?
That's what we figure out together. And then we decide how we would like that to look, and then we make the recommendation to City Council.
Member Lindsay?
And there's more on that in the racial equity. There's more on that in the racial equity impact plan. The actual wording of the recommendations for next steps says support launch of an Office of Racial Equity and Human Rights, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion to support the organization being the City of Albany, as it carries out the goals outlined in the equity framework, which is the report they put in. And then they needed to put in that there's a fiscal impact. They'd be paying a salary for the director, and then some kind of operations budget. So this would be a person, and then hopefully it would grow into more than just one person, who would be coordinating and advocating for racial and social equity from within city staff, right there at City Hall. That would be a pretty powerful thing. They'd presumably be reporting directly to the city manager. So and they'd be working full time on this. That would be pretty spectacular too.
Hi, Member Rios.
I just wanted to add that racial equity work is often unpaid, and that is a burden on every person of color to educate the communities, the organizations that we work with, and creating a racial equity office for the City of Albany means that somebody out there would not just be working for equitable practices in governance and across the city, but also it would create an income for someone to do that work, someone hopefully of color.
Thank you. In terms of the work plan items, the first two, I'm kind of waiting. I would want to see the presentation, or at least read through the documents, rather, and the housing element, and also the racial equity survey, to get a better sense of what that would entail. So I don't really have any comments about what specifically it would pique my interest in those two items. I think that with the third agenda, the work plan item, I am really interested in how to engage with schools and in affinity groups, because I think that, per the public comment related to the incident that happened in 2016, it does, that does seem like an important space to be actually, trying to champion the people who are doing work in those spaces and really, put energy and effort and resources towards those folks. So that's something that I'm really interested in. I'm not sure how that would take form. I'm kind of trying to gather the information now live as it's being given and understand what that would actually look like, because I do think that's fairly urgent. Yes. I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Oh, go for it.
We do actually have a Black affinity group at our school. I'm not sure if it's like widely known, but there is like a clubs thing kind of run by a counselor. And the superintendent also comes down to talk to us about like requests that we have. So you could like get in contact with the school to talk and present here if that's something you were interested in.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And yeah, it sounds like the fourth bullet point is kind of is something that's very stable, at least on this list, and trying to also understand what it means to give back to or at least pay homage to like the idea of like it going to health. And that's kind of a difficult thing to maneuver, but also wanting to use that to at least give a recommendation that feels that it aligns with the values of the commission. So yeah, I'm generally okay with all four of those, and happy to talk about the other items that folks have brought up. So, does anybody have any items they wanted to bring up again, or anything further to talk about on this item? Member Lindsay?
Are we scheduled to finish at 9? Yeah, I know we're pretty much done, I think. But I was going to say that presumably what's going to happen, you can't do anything without a work plan. And the last commission spent 7 months on the work plan before they could do anything. Hopefully we can do better than that. Something like that. Maybe it was 6. It was a long time. So if at the next meeting we could hammer out, we pick a number, I don't know what it is, and prioritize and pick that number and get it to council, then we could start actually doing real work. That's what I'm hoping will happen. And there's not much more, other than a presentation, there's not much more we can put on there because we don't have a work plan yet, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we can knock that out next week and just take a vote, and people will pick our top N. I don't know what N is. I don't know what number it is, 5 or 7 or something items. And the rest will go on a list of, we'll pick one of them when we finish one. And then the month after that, we can get going. Well, I guess there's no meetings in August, so we could actually get going in September anyway.
Yeah, sounds like everybody was pretty, it didn't seem like there was a very long list of things.
Yeah.
So, it seems good.
So here's what I'd like to do for you, Madam Chair. I'd like to be your secretary, and I'll go ahead and send you a list of everything we discussed and the equity plan so that you can read it. And then we can take a vote at our next meeting so we can get ready for September.
Thank you so much, Member Rios. I appreciate it. So moving on to agenda item 8, the next meeting will be Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
Just to let you all know that the normal meeting here is Tuesdays, the first Tuesday. The reason for the Wednesday is obviously because 4th of July is on the Tuesday. So that's why there is usually sometimes 2 meetings in a year that we have to adjust to a Wednesday. because of the holiday.
Okay. If there are no comments on that, then
Meeting adjourned.
meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
If all of you can stay for